morning, everybody. I'm Lexi, and welcome back. We are continuing with bookbinding, and today we are going to work on the French link stitch, which is sewing our signatures together. So I have shown it in another video, but I didn't do a full comprehensive guide, so that's what this will be today. You're going to need a few things. One, you can do it without a punching cradle. I will show you how. It's just I really suggest a punching cradle. If you know somebody with a 3D printer, they can print you one. That is what I did. I have a 3D printer and I printed this one, and I love that it is printed because I could take a marker and mark exactly where I want my holes to go so that they are uniform on all of my books, because all of my books are done on letter size paper folded into signatures. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to punch my holes, but first, if you did not want to do it this way, you could take a ruler and on like a spare sheet of paper, which measure out exactly how many lines you want to do and mark it on the paper. So let's say alright, so you have a 8.5-inch long signature that you need to make holes with. You always want to have an in hole and an out hole. Then you're going to want 2 holes for each French link stitch. So you need to make sure that they work. So it's better to draw it out first. So this would go out, this would go in, out, in, out, in, and then out. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes. So then you want to mark them. This is going to take some math that I do not want to do this morning, but you can figure it out. You're going to want to mark them at equal distance throughout your signature. Once you get that marked, you're going to make your marks on the edge of your paper. Let's just say, do not go by this. This is, I did not measure nothing. I was just making an example. And then you put it in the middle of your signature, make sure it is lined up perfectly, and then punch your holes that way. However, this is why I love my punching cradle, because it saves a ton of work. I always make sure I open it up. I make sure everything is lined up exactly to the top. I always want my punching part, I don't know what this is called. I want this part, and I always want my hole guides, like the little marks that I've drawn, I always want it on the side across from me. That way I know it's going to be exactly the same on every signature. And I want to push that all the way to the top. And then we just hold it and punch our signatures. Easy as that. You can kind of see the light through them. There you go. Then we're going to put it off to the side. And do the next one. Make sure it's all up to the top. This is all to the top. I am not going to fast forward through anything in this video. That way you can see everything in real time. And hopefully any questions or issues that you guys have had while sewing your own signatures, like you will understand exactly where you went wrong, or your question will be answered by following along with this guide. So everything is punched. We can put our punching cradle and our awl away. We obviously don't need our pen. And we're going to check our holes to make sure they are lined up. They look pretty darn good. And now we need waxed thread. You can buy, I think is it cotton or linen? You can buy thread and wax it yourself. I'm pretty positive it's linen thread. But what you're going to want to do is take about this much for every signature. So we have 10 signatures, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And sometimes it gets really long and you just have to deal with it. It'll get shorter as you sew. If you don't like dealing with it, then you can make shorter pieces and then mess with tying them together. I do not like that though, because I feel like the ties show together inside the signatures when you're reading your book, and I just personally do not like that. So we're going to kind of make it off a little bit, and we're going to pull it just so it's about like that for now. And we want to start with the very last signature, because your book is going to build up from this one. So like this, and it'll build up. Open it up and go through the very first hole. Now the first 3 signatures are going to be different from each other in just small ways, and you will see why here in a minute. The nice thing about the waxed thread is it does a really good job of making sure that it doesn't get all tangled up, because you are working with a very long piece of thread, and it would be extremely frustrating if it was also getting tangled and knotted as you're trying to sew your signatures. At the end of each signature, I like to go and first take my bone folder and kind of flatten it. The very first one, I'm going to take both sides and I'm going to pull. Do not pull this way or you're going to tear your paper. You want to pull out from each other. That's going to make sure that it is as flat as possible. There's no extra string in there, nothing. So we're going to put our next signature down on top. And where you came out on this side, you're going to go in on that side of the signature. So for the first couple signatures, I tend to hold them kind of like this as I sew, and then after they've built up a few, I can leave them on the desk like this and sew it. But it needs to build up off the desk just a little bit before that happens. So on the second signature, you're going to go in your first, and then you realize there are 3 threads. Like, how do I explain this? So you have the in thread here, the out thread here. I should have done this in a different color. But you have this thread, and this thread. So they're going across. So tighten that back. And we don't have to worry about the second signature being super tight as you sew it, because we're going to go back in there and fix it at the end. So you go in your first one. The second one, you're going to come out and it's going to start your first French link. So you come out. Oh, it's nice. And then you're going to go under. The stitch on the bottom. Pull it through. And then back in and on that one. And then we're going to go out the next one and do the same. Under. Back in. And it's going to create a beautiful stitch pattern that keeps all your signatures together, like, really well. So we're going to come out the top one. And now you're going to realize, well, that's really loose. How is that going to keep anything together? Well, we already tightened our first one, but we're going to go do it again. I'm going to take my needle, grab that bottom, pull it to tighten. And then what we're going to do is open the top one and pull each of the stitches on the inside. Start with the first one. So like if you came in this side and sewed that way, you would be pulling from this side first. But we came in this side and sewed that way, so we started here. So we're going to pull each of these in a row. Then you hold them together and you'll see that they're perfect. So now we're going to take the tail from the first one and the second one and tie them together really well. Now, these signatures have been pressed overnight to make sure that they're as folded as possible. However, there are some times that I do not get to press them before I sew them. Okay, we're gonna put our next signature on top. Go in. Make sure when you're putting them, so this one is 239, make sure 238 is going flat on top. I've done this enough that I forget that step because like I know everything is lined up just right. But for the first little while you should probably pay attention to that. So here's where it gets a tiny bit different. You've already got a link down here, and there are two sides you can go through. You're going to want to go the opposite side that your hole is in, or you're coming out of. So I'm coming out of this hole. I want to go through this side on the opposite side. So this side, not this side. So go through the opposite side and straighten the hole right above it. Go in the opposite side. Straighten the hole right above it. I would also recommend using a curved needle for this. It just makes it so much easier to grab in between the signatures and to link up underneath your stitches. So you're going to go in the opposite side, straight into the hole right above it. And then out the end. So everything's all loosey-goosey. We started on this side and went that way, so we're going to do the same thing with tightening our laces. So start there, go there, all the way down until you take this and tighten it. Make sure everything's super tight. You can kind of see if the camera will focus good. It's creating a really beautiful link effect. One day I'll remember to use a darker colored thread. So at the end, we're going to do something different. We don't have nothing to tie it to. So now I might be doing this wrong, but the way I do it works just fine. I go in from the out, under the stitch underneath, pull it until I make a tiny loop, and then I'm going to go in from the out again. So in from the outside, under that loop. going to create like a little knot, and you're going to pull it tight. And that's going to keep them all together. So, put the next signature down, start again. So this is signature 4, and from 4 on we're going to be doing the same thing as we did in 3. We're going to go to the opposite side, pick up that stitch, and then go into the hole above it. On the opposite side, pick up the stitch, into the hole above it. Opposite side, into the hole above it. We've got to tighten them. So we came in this side and went that way, so we're going to do the same thing with our laces. Pull this one first, then this one, and now take the string, fold it over, make sure it's tight, and then we're going to do our knot at the end into the stitch below it. So I normally just link my loop, my needle, in between those pages and hook up right under it, in from the out. Create a little loop, go in from the out again, and pull. The next signature down, opposite side, into the hole above it. I'm hoping if I say that enough, it'll like be ingrained in your brain that you use the opposite side right under the hole you go into. So opposite side, into the hole above it. hook up that opposite side. Into the hole above it. Oh Lord, it's tangled. Need to give myself a little more slack on my line. And then out the last hole. So we came in this way and went that way, so we're going to do our laces that way. Underneath. Make a loop. In from the out again. Pull it tight. Next signature. We're halfway through. I'm going to do the rest in real time, but I'm not going to make you listen to me talk all the way through it. I'll add a little music in with it. cannot grab the needle for the life of me. There we go. We're on our very last signature. So we're going to sew it on, and I'm going to show you how to tie it off. You can see it's making a beautiful link pattern. This is one of my favorite parts about the sewing, is to see how pretty it looks at the end. We're going to tighten it. You're going to do the last stitch like you normally do, and then we're going to add a couple more to it. So we're going to go out from the, or in from the out, tie it off, and then what I do, I'm sure there are other ways, but my way works just perfectly, is I'm going to go down a few signatures. So I just went through this one, I'm now going through this one. Pull it and tighten it. And then I'm going to go one more. So I went through this one and this one, now I'm going through this one. And pull that. And now I'm going to trim it. Now here we have our finished signatures. They are sewn together. Our next step is to make our end pages. So decide whether we're going to use like plain cardstock. I think what I'm going to do on this book, I'm going to make my own. So I'll do that in Canva. I'll put that in the next video. So our next video, I will make our end pages. We'll glue them on. We'll trim down the text block, and then we'll measure to make our case. See you then.